I alluded to this in the last video, but the greatest challenge of the Constitutional Convention was the question of how to balance the interests of large and small states. Eventually, they're going to come up with a compromise, but there's going to be heated debates before this compromise is reached. New Jersey and the plan is going to be welcomed warmly by small states, as I talked about at the end of the last flip video. Many delegates saw this plan as little improvement to the Articles of Confederation. Remember that they had thrown the Articles of Confederation in the trash can and were starting a brand new constitution. They didn't want something that was going to look like the Articles of Confederation because they knew that it did not work. Therefore, the New Jersey plan is going to be rejected. Still, even though the plan is going to be rejected, delegates still did not agree on how state representation should be put into place. So you're saying, well, the Virginia plan is the only other plan presented. Well, there was problems with that plan, and the problem with that was state representation. And the delegates are going to debate this. So the debate of state representation, the tempers are going to rise. This is going to become heated, and it's going to become personal. And you guys have seen this during the simulation. But on even more personal matters, imagine fighting for your state's rights in national government. Because the small states saw this as a personal attack on them, and they weren't going to get their needs met in a government that was represented by state population. So delegates from larger states thought representation based on population seemed logical and fair, mostly because they would get more representatives. Their argument was that the government were arguing as delegates that it's for the men, it's for the people. Well, shouldn't people be based on population and not just states? So that was their argument, that the more people that lived in the state, the more representatives that state should give, because the government is a government for the people, not a government for the states. Okay, so that's going to be their main argument and their main logic as they debate this. At the same time, small states are going to fear that the larger states are going to hurt them, are not necessarily listen to their wants and their needs. They did not trust the larger states to look out for their interests. They sometimes even compared large states to foreign allies, and this was a sign of disunity between the delegates and the members of the states, and many of the delegates saw this as a huge warning. If they're not unified, this whole thing isn't going to work out. This fight for independence, all these arguments that took place in the lead up towards the Revolutionary War, they're all going to be thrown out the window. And many of them were worried because they knew other powers such as Great Britain and France, they were just waiting for the U.S. to fall apart. They were waiting for essentially this experiment to crumble. And here is kind of an illustration of possibly a debate that was happening. So you see that everyone is standing, everyone is trying to talk. George Washington is trying to calm these matters and have one person speak at a time, but there's going to be very heated and personal speeches given to fight for state rights or to fight for population rights. Finally, even after these heated debates, a compromise is going to be reached. And this plan was proposed by Roger Sherman of Connecticut, and this plan included to keep 2 House Congress. So that means that they were going to have both a House of Representatives and a Senate. The House of Representatives was going to be based on the state's population. So the number of representatives from each state would be based on state population. That would appeal to larger states because they would get more representatives. The other house, the Senate, would be represented by the states. That being said, each state would have an equal number of representatives in the Senate. So each state would have 2 senators elected by their state legislatures. This plan is going to pass, but narrowly. Eventually, this is going to be known as the Great Compromise, and it's going to decide representation in Congress. To explain this a little further, I'm going to show you some images here. Okay, so first, they decided on these three branches. Okay, that was their first agreement. They're going to have a judicial, an executive, and a legislative branch. This is, right here, our government. Okay, this is the federal government. Now, when it comes to legislative, this is the branch that is going to be represented by the people. And it's going to have two houses. It's going to have the House of Representatives and the Senate. Okay, within this legislative branch right here, okay, you have what's called the U.S. Congress. Okay, they decided that the Senate is going to be based off state. This is going to be equality between the states. There's going to be 2 senators from each state. The House of Representatives, the other part of Congress, is going to be based off population. The more people you have, the more votes you get. So let's look how this plays out today, because obviously the Great Compromise is going to give us the government that we have in today's society. So this is looking at the House of Representatives. Remember, the House of Representatives is decided off state population. So as you can see, Iowa right here, we have 4 representatives in the House of Representatives compared to California, which has 53 representatives. Texas has 36. Even some states that have a very small population are just going to have 1 representative. That includes Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas as well. So the House of Representatives is going to be decided upon population.